Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
Happy Friday, Mike.
Happy Friday, Phil, and everybody out there listening to our wonderful podcast. It's a great week, hopefully, and we got a lot to talk about as always.
Oh, yeah, we got serious stuff, and we got good news for you, Mike. Swift's 12th album, The Life of a Showgirl, dropped last Friday at midnight and has already broken records. The biggest single-day streams of 2025 on Spotify and Apple Music, and the most streamed album in a single day ever on Amazon Music. Mike, as our resident Swiftie, what's your take on the album and the insane success it's having right out the gate?
Well, I'm not surprised. She kind of marketed that way from the beginning, said that it was going to be a huge, very danceable album, and it is. And I'm not surprised because, and it's funny because you go on social media like TikTok or the Gram or somewhere, and you get, obviously, every time that she does anything, she gets lots of detractors, right? So I found it funny because, of course, me being a Swiftie, I had to listen to the album when it went live at midnight. And immediately you had people going, "Oh, it's terrible. It's not, And then, of course, within 12 hours, I think the numbers speak for themselves. And she set like pretty much every record that you could set. Another stat, she's the first person in the history of the world to have the #1 movie and the #1 album on the same weekend. That's never happened before. And I think, but people don't know about her. She's the only female that's ever been on the Time magazine cover of the year twice. No other female has ever done that.
Well,
so she's an interesting character. She certainly knows how to market. Let's put it that way.
And that's kind of my slant on the whole story is, I'm not a Swiftie. This is the first album I ever purchased of hers. First one I listened to from beginning to end. And I did a lot of research on her. And like I mentioned last week, first I found out that she writes all her stuff. She's not just somebody that a producer created. But I've also found out she's one of the greatest businessmen or business persons in entertainment. And the way I first discovered it was I was trying to buy her album. And stream her album because I have Napster, so I pretty much can hear all music for a set price.
Yep.
But hers isn't included, so I discovered she's a handful of artists who doesn't stream. You got to buy her albums, and she's got the power to actually people go out and buy it. People don't be like, "Oh, F you," they go out and buy it. So she's come up with a business model, and the business model works. So that's one thing I want to give her credit for. She's not the dummy, cute girl that everybody's making her out to be.
And that's one of the things that you got to realize, that this year was huge for her. She finished doing the Eras tour, which was like probably the top grossing tour of all time from anybody. But on top of that, she also acquired all of her past music.
Right.
So she owns all of her own music, which. For those of you that weren't aware of that she got it sold out from under her a number of years ago, and then being the business person that she is, she re-released all of the albums for a second time so that she could control the rights and the income from them, and then ended up being able to buy the original albums back. So now she owns her entire catalog, and as you said, Phil, she completely controls all the streaming. I mean, she's taken some flack on this particularly new album because she released, you say that she releases it on streaming, and she also released about 12 different variations of the album from the get-go, meaning there's like multiple colors of records, and there's, she even released it on cassette tape. I mean, she released it all these different ways. And then on top of that, she released an entire album from the get-go, a clean version, the unedited version, a dance version. So she's right on top of all of that, and and she doesn't release anything in advance. So everybody had to wait till midnight on Friday to hear anything. She doesn't release singles. Totally different marketing than pretty much any other artist I've ever heard of. So it's interesting to watch for sure.
Right. And with her buying back her masters, she didn't just like increase her income. She tripled it because she has song credits. She's the singer and she's produced some of them. So she's getting like multiple checks from every time somebody buys one of these old albums. So I'm interested in what her worth will be like in the next 5 years, not even what it is now, because that's going to just extrapolate those numbers to a crazy. I think she's going to be a billionaire.
Oh yeah, I mean she's pretty close already. So she's. Yeah, it's kind of an amazing story and still fairly young. You know, she's what 35 or something. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm as a Swiftie, I was impressed by the new album. To be honest, there's 12 tracks on it, and they're all pretty dancey. They got it. I had to laugh because you already see people in cycling studios and whatnot. They're already. I mean, that's typical of her fans, I guess. Everybody knows every word of every song already. It's like it's as if it'd been out for 6 months already, and it's only been like less than a week.
She's written a few of them in what I call the anthem style.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
there's like three songs on the album I could see just constantly being on commercials or in a movie and stuff like that. And she has touched the pulse of women her age.
Yep.
Mike, I don't know if you remember or know anything about Carole King.
Yep.
Carole King, I believe, was the first of her ilk, where she's the singer-songwriter, and she doesn't sing what everybody else is singing. She's singing about what women are thinking and feeling.
Yes.
And she's the evolution of Carole King.
Agreed, Phil. And it's one of the things, I'm glad you noticed that, because she definitely always writes songs about whatever is going on in her life at the time. So this album is focused largely on her relationship and her new relationship with Travis Kelce and all that. But like all of her albums are always better. She doesn't make up fantasy songs really about other stuff, which is very interesting. And she's not singing political stuff, and she's not getting all distracted by a bunch of stuff around her.
She doesn't sing and write mainstream. She sings and writes her stream.
Yep. And is copied by a lot of artists. A lot of artists. Yeah. So
and just one last thing about her, Mike. We're talking about how great her business savvy is. Well, there are other people who could do that, but nobody would go buy their album.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a handful of people, I think, in all of entertainment could do what she's doing. Maybe a Beyonce.
Yep.
And I can't really, maybe a Lady Gaga.
Yep, Lady Gaga has done some of that. So what it is they're pulling together elements of both. As you said, she writes her stuff, so she's a prolific writer, and she's written, by the way, some hit songs for other groups and other bands as well. So it's not just hers, but on top of that, she has the choreography and the dancing and the stage show that is, reminiscent of some of those artists that we've talked about on the podcast here before, that are huge throughout history. So she pulls in that element, and is able to cross genres. So so it's pop music, but she's done country, but she's performed with like a variety of artists from all walks of life, like all different streams of music. So she's able to kind of cross those boundaries. And you'll notice, yes, you said that her number one, let's call it her number one clientele is women of her age group, which, by the way, has gone from 16 years old to 35 now. But
right.
But there's lots of men. There's lots of older people. She's got all sorts of other obviously, you could see by the numbers. And that's and you mentioned Lady Gaga, who, by the way, I also love. Lady Gaga is super talented. She's another one because, like when she did that movie, I mean, her acting ability and her it's amazing. So there are a number of artists that can do this. I think the difference with Taylor is that she's a business person and she's very thorough. And I've been watching her this week, and she doesn't do a lot of interviews, by the way, but I've been watching her this week with the album release, and she's been on late night television, and she's done some interviews with some people, and she's very quick witted. She's kind of funny, but she's very well spoken. That's unique.
She's definitely well spoken, but you can see she has strong media training. Yeah, because I've seen her just dance through the questions that they ask her without giving any answers.
Yep,
with a smile.
Yep,
and they're smiling, and they forget that they were trying to trick her.
That's right. So it's been a good. And by the way, just so you guys know, I would have shown you on the podcast if you were visually watching this. I don't have the. I ordered the orange. The record, and it hasn't come yet. Well, it got delivered to my place in San Diego, but it hasn't made its way down here to Baja yet. It takes a while to get things shipped down here, so I'm still waiting for my album. Maybe today. We'll see.
So, Mike, Amazon just made a bizarre move on James Bond Day, quietly editing classic 007 posters on Prime Video to remove Bond's guns. Connery, Brosnan, and Moore were left pointing at nothing. And with Amazon now owning Bond outright after buying MGM and paying $1 billion for full control, Mike, what does it mean when corporations can rewrite our cultural memories with a few clicks?
Yeah, welcome to the world of AI, I guess. I mean, it's some weird stuff, right? I mean,
I brought this up, Mike, because the gun is everything to James Bond.
Right.
To me, Bond without his gun is like Mickey Mouse without his ears. I mean, there are businesses. Not business. There's been a whole economy around the gun and James Bond. People have went out and bought the particular gun that he uses. People have repeated that stand on record albums and dance choreography and everything. So wow.
Yeah, it is a weird move, I think. Sometimes I don't understand Amazon, to be honest with you. Because they get attacked. They're getting attacked by the left all the time recently because of Jeff Bezos and saying that he's in Trump's pocket and they're right wing and so but that to me that's the opposite, right? Getting rid of guns on the thing would indicate the very opposite of that. So I don't know. They're interesting. That is, yeah, and I agree with you. James Bond, you think of, I think of cool cars, gadgets, and the gun. I mean, right? I mean, that's what you think of. That's James Bond. What else is there?
And
that'd be like Spider-Man without, not being able to friggin' climb up the side of buildings.
It is a violent movie show.
Yes.
Without the violence, there is no James Bond.
Particularly for their time periods, they were ahead of the curve, if you ask me, on violence. Like going way back. I agree. Next, they'll take out the James Bond girl too. If there's no girl and there's no gun, you got no James Bond.
So, Mike, does digital media make our cultural history more fragile since nothing is truly permanent anymore? Because I think it does. I think this is a scary time. I think that a lot of things that we take for granted in our memory may be left in our memory when we die.
Well, I mean, that's the problem, because you can be watching, and I guess it's always been like this to some extent, when you watched a movie, say, on network television that was originally aired on whatever, and they've edited both either for time or for violence or sex or whatnot. So this is not new, but Now it's done so easily that you could not, before it was taking out minutes of like the show as an example, but now with AI and with Photoshop and everything else, shit, you can keep the scene in and totally alter what the scene looks like.
But what's
Right? I
happening
mean,
different now, Mike, is like in the day what you mentioned, they give you that disclaimer before you start the movie that this isn't the real one. Like with
yeah,
Amazon, they did it and got caught.
yeah.
So if you don't know, and if there's not enough swarm around the issue, it'll slip through the
You won't
cracks
know.
and become
Yep,
history.
yep, yep, yep. That's true. I don't know.
I could see Charleston Heston's Ten Commandments, them removing the split the ocean scene because split the
Right.
sea scene because it's divisive.
Well, next thing you know, Phil, they'll be have 7 commandments.
Right, right.
Oh, it's scary.
So, Mike, with Bad Bunny headlining the Super Bowl halftime show, Homeland Security Christy Noem announced that ICE will be all over the stadium, also slamming the NFL as weak and out of touch. It raises the question, does this actually make the game safer or just turn it into a political stunt? Do
Well,
you think that the response to him being in the Super Bowl was a good thing or a bad thing?
oh, I think it's a bad thing. I mean, I mean, I'll give you, in all fairness, I'm a big Bad Bunny fan, and we listen to him down here a lot because, as you would expect, he's pretty popular here in Mexico because it's in Spanish. So, and then you get all of these people. I'm gonna rain on the rights parade here for a minute because I think this largely came from the right side where people were like, it's good old American football. Let's have an American. But I mean, let's cut to the chase here. Last time I checked, Puerto Rico has been, always has been, and will be American. So, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, America includes Puerto Rico and includes people of Hispanic background, and that's just America. So, and by the way, he represents a lot of people and is very popular. So, if anything, I would say they're bringing in somebody into the Super Bowl that is more current and more popular than they normally do. Because a lot of times they'll bring some people, entertainers in for the halftime show that are kind of like, I don't want to say has-beens, but their heyday had come and gone, right? I mean, let's just be honest.
Yep.
So I don't see what this is all about. And then by the way, threatening to bring in ICE, what? Because there's are they insinuating that Bad Bunny fans are illegal immigrants or what? I mean, first of all, last time I checked, illegal immigrants are not be able to afford to go to the Super Bowl. Shit, I can't even go to the damn Super Bowl. I mean, it's crazy expensive. So I don't get the slant there
So
at all.
this is why a majority, there's a big majority of liberal people who they just go by sound bites and things like that, and that's how they get their opinions, right? This is one of the reasons why there is a large amount of minorities and liberals have a saying that there's racist in both parties,
Yeah.
but there's a better chance if it's a racist that they're a Republican.
Yep.
And this actually substantiates that when they do things like that, when they pick a fight with minorities and inflame situations for no reason.
None.
Because this was nothing but, in my opinion, a whistle to those people who have hate for others. There's a difference between wanting people to stay in their country and hating people from another country. And these
It's even
situations,
worse when it's our country. I mean, that's the craziest part of
well, and that's where I was headed. It it even makes the point of this stereotype of that in the Republicans, you got a bunch of country, redneckish, white that ain't ever been nowhere. They don't even know Puerto Rico is America, things like that. It feeds right into the stereotype. So as long as and that's why if I were in politics, I would never proudly as a black person say that I'm on the right. I would be embarrassed. I would be embarrassed. I could not go around other black people proudly saying that because of things like this, where you're attacking people in America who are a minority and there's no reason for it.
None. Yeah, and you're right, Phil, and it's completely, it's counterintuitive because these are the people that, by and large, I mean, Donald Trump got into office with a very strong Latino vote, and to sort of throw it back at them is foolishness. Like, why not? And I agree with what you're saying, Phil. The main reason is because they're playing to that old school redneck base, right? Which, in my opinion, should be gone, come and gone. You know what I mean? That's history. We need to put that somewhere else.
Well, it's not going because I mean they consistently feed them something every day.
Yeah,
they're not trying to put the fire out.
No, and that's too bad. And I think that is a serious problem.
The thing about Charlie Kirk going back and forth, that was the same thing. That was a dog whistle for them. It was a way for them to espouse their hate.
And that is I mean, I don't know how we solve that problem going forward. And the Bad Bunny thing is an interesting example of that. But you know, it's something that I've talked about on the podcast before, and I'm going to say it again here. Probably not the right way. Probably politically not correct. Those that do not travel are the uneducated ones, in my opinion. Okay, so if you get out of your box and you go see how other people do it, other cultures do it, other countries do it, other areas of the country, whatever it may be, you are the educated one. And now I'm not talking about how many years you went to school or whether you went to college or not. That's irrelevant. Those that travel are the smart ones, are the educated ones. The ones people that do not travel are the dopes.
Mike,
sorry to say it that way.
I bring that up to you all the time. That's one of my main talking points. All I'm going to say is I agree with you.
I firmly believe if more Americans traveled, and by the way, when you look at the world as a whole and the many countries that make up the world, Americans are some of the least traveled people on the planet. Americans generally do not like to go outside of their comfort zone. So they're willing to go on vacation to Disney World or Vegas, or they'll go to the Bahamas, or they'll go, look at where I am in Mexico. They're going to come down to Cancun or Tulum or Cabo or somewhere, and they're going to go to their resort. And they're going to have a pool and an ocean, and they're going to have margaritas, and they're going to have nice cocktails, and they're going to go home, and they're going to be like, I had a great time, man. I love Mexico. Well, buddy, you didn't see a fucking thing about Mexico. You never been there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I mean, and that is an American mindset. And I got to tell you, when I started traveling in my early days, and I spent all the time going across Africa and different places, I almost never saw an American anywhere. You're not going to see an American in a developing area of the world. You're just not, unless they're in the Peace Corps or the UN or something like that. They're not there, and that's a problem. And then you start to wonder, why do we have diversity problems in America? Why do we have such polarization? Why do we have people hating everybody? Because you don't get out enough, dude. I mean, that's why.
Not only do we not travel, even just take an absolute of those who do travel. it's still a small portion of those that actually immerse themselves in that particular culture. Just like you mentioned, you go to the resort or you go to the 2 or 3 blocks in the city that's Americanized. You go to the American. You know go on YouTube right now. How many people go to Japan and the first place they go to is the Japanese McDonald's?
Right. Exactly.
I'm going because I want to see the difference.
Right.
But that's the last thing on my list. I want something completely Japanese.
Yep. I know, and then Americans have the wrong sense of the world. You know, I'll give you an example. What you've been talking about food, and you and I love to talk about food. But think about if you go to. Let me use the 2 most obvious ones. Well, actually, here's 3 most obvious ones: Italian, Chinese, or Mexican. Let me tell you, having been to all those are not in America. Those foods are not what those people eat in their home country. It's not the same.
Yeah, because people look at me crazy, when you talk about food, and I always say my favorite food is seafood, and they'll be like, well, how do you like your seafood? And I usually say I like the way the Asians make it first, and then I like the way that they do it in Mexico second. And then they go, Mexico?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, they got a laundry list of seafood dishes.
Yep. But the problem is that Americans have been brought to learn, Italian food is Carrabba's, Mexican food is Taco Bell,
Right.
and Chinese food is, Hung Wang 2 on the corner of, whatever, and sweet and sour chicken is what they eat. No, that's no. I mean, most of, like Chinese food in America, most of it's Polynesian, really. It's not even, it's got nothing to do with China.
Some of it ain't even Asian. It was something that got whipped up in an Asian restaurant in America to satisfy an American.
That's right.
Mike, sticking with NFL and football for a second, former NFL quarterback Mark Sanchez isn't just facing charges, he's showing the ugly side of athletic entitlement. Prosecutors say he banged into a 69-year-old truck driver's space, started a fight, and thought his status and size would carry the day. This is the same mindset we've seen from athletes who believe that the world should bend to them. So the question is, was Sanchez's behavior about alcohol and being under the influence, or is it an example of an ex-athlete's narcissism, still thinking their fame and physical edge give them the right to bully others?
Well, here we go again. I'm going to get myself in trouble with some more of our listeners. I stopped watching football about, 15 years, a while ago. Let's put it that way, a while ago. And the reason is because I think that, and by the way, this is probably not just football, but I do find it worse in football. I mean, it's a league of thugs at this point. And Mark Sanchez here is a good example of this. I think they're entitled, narcissistic. I think it's a problem. I think it's a league culture, if you ask me. And I used to be a Dolphins fan, and I followed football very closely for many, many years. And I'll be honest, I can't even watch. I just can't watch it anymore. It's just a bunch of garbage. Everybody's got it. They all want to be above and beyond the game, right? And I think that plays into this weird culture. And I don't think it's limited to just football either, but I do find it to be somehow worse in football. And I think he's a good example of this. I think he was just entitled. This guy, he was irritated that he was, taking up his parking spot or something. And then he was like, probably deserved getting knifed.
Well, Mike, it's a different sport, but it's the same thing. Coming up, I knew a lot of professional basketball players. And when they come to Chicago, we go out and hang out or enjoy the city during the day. And an observation that I have is, I agree with everything that you said, but also we condition them to thinking they're superior. Because hanging out with them, I see people literally change up the entirety of who they are when they see a celebrity athlete. I've seen men give in to letting a athlete cross lines with their significant other that they would never let anyone do. I've seen the significant other behave in front of their spouse in a way they would never do. I've told you before, the health club I went to, I used to shoot ball all week, every day with Michael Jordan. Now, he's the greatest ever, right? He would call BS fouls all the time. That's one of the reasons why I don't like him.
Yep.
And everybody would just give it to him. And I would see guys who would argue with you for 30 minutes about a foul, and they'd just be like, okay.
Yep.
So the point I'm getting to is these guys get into a groove in life where everybody moves around them. Everything is catered to them. People change their behaviors for them. He's probably asked somebody to do something more significant than move their car, and they just said, okay, Mark, hoping that he talked to them afterwards.
Yep.
Maybe I'll get a signature. So it's sickness in the person, it's sickness in the system, and it's sickness in the fanatical fans.
Yep.
Mike, the Pentagon press corps sorry, bro. The Pentagon press corps is staring down a deadline. Sign new restrictions on how they report or lose access entirely. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says it's just common sense security, but reporters argue it's intimidation that threatens the First Amendment. So here's the big question. Should journalists covering the U.S. military have to accept these new rules, or is this crossing a dangerous line?
I know I'm starting to sound like the Pete Hegseth fanboy here on the podcast, but I once again agree with him on this. I think it's common sense. I think the Pentagon, by definition, is America's security and infrastructure network, and it's responsible for the safety of our country. So I think that it is reasonable to say that they're going to limit what reporters can have access to or know about or release. I read that whole thing, by the way, because it was a big deal was made of this. And I'm not really sure why. Probably because it came from the Donald Trump administration, so the left decided that this is a terrible thing. But I didn't see any big, earth-shattering thing here. I mean, that's just my opinion. To me, it was common sense that they don't have access to as many rooms or geographic areas of the Pentagon, and they don't have access to a certain amount of information, and they're limited what they're allowed to say. I don't know. I didn't find anything weird. What was your thought on it?
Mine is a little different.
Okay.
I'm kind of in the middle, but I'm towards the left on this.
Okay.
There absolutely needs to be security measures in the Pentagon. But if you understand what the Pentagon is, yes, it is where all of the different services go to meet. But it was also created to be a place where the media could meet those people and interact with them and keep a pulse of things. When they talk about moving the rooms and stuff around, it sounds like, oh, we're just moving you from one side of the building to another. No, it's we're removing you from any access to the building, basically, and we put you in this little corner. So you might as well not even have an office. I believe that there should be security. I believe that that we have secrets and we should protect them. But they are going a step too far. They are trying to control narratives and eliminate more than just the leaks. They're trying to prevent the news organizations from finding out about some of the strategies and ideas that are coming out of the Trump administration. That's why this also intersects with, in the same 7-day period, with the summit he had with the generals. He's basically he wants to move forward with some ideas that he doesn't want questioned until they're in action. It's hard to stop things that are in action. It's much easier to stop them beforehand. And all of this is towards that end, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree with you on that point, Phil. I mean, I think this entire thing is about.
I pay taxes. I deserve to know what the hell is going on within reason.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that all of this is a goal. The end goal here is to control the media and control the government from a strong arm position. As I said before, it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I think they're setting this all up for a control, whether that's a martial law situation, claiming that, you know, we're at war, we have an internal war against, you know, cartels or whatever you're going to claim. I think that, and I agree with what you said, Phil. It's a lot harder to stop something after it happens. If you can question it before they, you know, implement something, that's what they don't want. And it's similar to the bombing or shooting down the boats, you know, the Venezuelan boats.
And the big deal to me is them trying to have them sign these NDAs. That is antithetical. That's the antithesis of what a press corps
of course
in a democratic society is. Yeah. It's free press. You are literally putting shackles on them. In order to succeed in what they're trying to say they're doing, you don't need NDAs. There's already law in place. A journalist who's gone to school has already been taught that there are certain things that if you're reporting them, you are a traitor to your country, and you can be. The rules are already there. They're already been taken all the way to the Supreme Court. There's already been precedent where a reporter has gotten information from not just a military person, but someone in power, and dispersed that information, and it's been taken to the Supreme Court. Some stuff he can hold on to and never tell who his source is, and some stuff he can go to jail for. It's already been clearly decided. So this NDA thing is basically to shut the press up. People should be really on this. How does free press have to sign an NDA? That's crazy.
Unfortunately, this is once again an example of the pendulum swinging the other direction, right? Because we're where we were before, and now we're swinging too far the other direction. And unfortunately for all of us, I think as Americans, the Trump administration understands this and is taking advantage of it while they can.
I agree. Mike, week 2 of this shutdown, and it's the same story. Americans taking the hit while Democrats refuse to budge on Obamacare subsidies, and Trump's signaling he's ready to cut off back pay for federal workers if Congress won't act. Mike, where does this fight go from here? And is holding the line the smartest move for Republicans?
Well, I mean, I've been raining on the Republicans on everything else a little bit today. I'm going to say that I think the shutdown is the Democrats' fault. As I mentioned before, largely everything that the Democrats are arguing for were supposed to sunset anyways, and which, by the way, was pre-voted on by both Republicans and Democrats. So, and a lot of these things, by the way, are supposed to sunset not in, the near term. We're talking 6 months, 8 months away. So to hold the government hostage, sort of, I think is a bad play on the Democrat side. I think where this goes is I think we only need 3 or 4 Democrats to flip at this point to get something to pass. I think that the Republicans hold out long enough. I think you're going to get Democrats to cave.
And a lot of these subsidies that the liberals or the left or Democrats are fighting for, on paper, they're for us, But if you research recent history, that's been their slush fund to pay for immigrants, all of the millions that they've been given to immigrants.
Yeah.
So even though they get in front of a mic and say, it's clear this is not for the immigrants, well, yeah, it's not earmarked for them.
Right. But that's where it ends up.
Right.
Yep. I know. I looked into that a little bit too.
So Mike, Trump says no more automatic back pay during shutdowns, and that Congress should decide if federal workers get reimbursed. That's accountability, but it raises the bigger question: should government guarantee those paychecks, or should workers share the risk when Washington can't do its job?
That's a tough one. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think the government should be able to shut down. I mean, this is nonsensical in the first place. You know, I look at the government as a big corporation. So it would be like, if we can't come to a decision, we're going to close Amazon until further notice. No, no business is going to do that. So I think that this whole process of funding the government is flawed. And I know I'm off topic, but a lot of it has to do with earmarks, has to do with fluff, it has to do with pork, it has to do with a bunch of behind the scenes negotiating that shouldn't be a part of the budget process. Because you're talking about funding different organizations within the government certain dollars to function. And unfortunately, the problem is that if you ask the employees to take a risk in that, you're kind of asking the employees to take a risk in the dysfunctional process of Congress that they can't even remotely control. Maybe we could control it if we had term limits and people could vote these schmucks out of office on both sides, but that's not the case that we have right now. Unfortunately, Congress are lifers at this point. By and large, when you get in, you're a lifer.
So, Mike, I worked for a company called, maybe I shouldn't say, I worked for a major phone company in a city.
Yep.
And we worked under what's called I don't even remember, I think the electrical workers. I was in the electrical workers union.
A union, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes we'd fight for something and we'd get back pay, and sometimes we wouldn't. But when we didn't, there was a lot of issues with the work environment, the tone, and the culture. And what I've discovered in any job at any point where the employees either get a check late or everybody got docked a certain amount or something goes wrong with the pay, it's a long time getting that culture back up and running the way it was when they didn't get paid. So on one side, I'm not with government workers not getting paid.
Well, they worked. They should get paid.
Well, no, they didn't. They've been off.
I know. I get it.
Oh, okay. I got you. So I'm all over the place with this. I don't want nobody not to get their money, but on the flip side, it's my money that they're getting for doing nothing. Yeah. So here's my solution. Shutdowns should only affect the government employees that can directly affect whether or not there is a shutdown. So what I'm saying is all of the Congress, all of the executive branch, Senate, all of that, they shouldn't get paid. Now, I know they don't even care about that little pittance of money, but they shouldn't get paid. They shouldn't get their health insurance. They should be locked out of their offices. They should not be allowed to exert any form of power whatsoever as a government employee until they settle it. Because they carry on. They carry on. They ain't hurting at all. And if there's something,
Phil, you're talking common sense here. That's not good.
So, Mike, as the Supreme Court kicks off a new term, all eyes on are on how far it's willing to go in backing Donald Trump's sweeping claims of presidential power, from tariffs to birthright citizenship to the president's ability to fire independent agency officials at will. This term could reshape the balance of executive authority. Mike, do you think the court is leaning toward expanding presidential power, or do you see real pushback coming?
It's tough to say. I think based on past experience over the last couple years that I think that it is moving in the direction of more presidential power. And I don't know if it's going to keep going that direction, but I think that he has loaded the court strong enough that he is getting his way more often than not. Let's just say it that way. So my fear is that we are very close, I think, to the tipping point here where, let's just hypothetically say the court allows birthright citizenship or goes along with Trump on that, and they go along with Trump on deploying the National Guard, and they go along with Trump on, even some of this war powers stuff. I think, I mean, you're not that far away from an absolute leader. Let's just say that. I mean,
I think that he's going to win the majority of these. The government is always going to support the government, has been my experience. And not only are they going to support him, we're framing it as, you framed it as though he has the Supreme Court in his back pocket, which I do believe. But I think that a lot of these things in front of them, if it was all liberals, they'd still begrudgingly allow him these powers. Not because they don't want him to have, because they want him to have the powers, but because they are the precedent. There's no court after them. So if they set the precedent that he can't have the powers, then future presidents can't have those powers. And they don't want to do that. So sometimes like I said, I think if it was all liberals, they would do it. It's just like when we get into these court cases where, like, when they were going after Trump, and then they said that you couldn't pursue a president. It's the same thing. Nobody wants to be the president when it's their time and have to deal with those things. They're going to protect their own. They're not going to eat their own.
Which, by the way, that ruling that you're bringing up where they gave presidential immunity essentially is probably, people didn't realize it at the time, is probably the most significant Supreme Court decision that's ever been made. Ever been made. It's why we're where we are today.
It basically eliminated the strongest, most powerful universal world law in the world, which is crimes against humanity.
Yep.
He's just been, he ain't got to ever worry about crimes to humanity.
Yep.
And I ain't with that at all. I'm not with that at all.
No. And I do think that history will show, I think when you look back on it, that decision may have been responsible for the end of the United States the way that we know it, and it may have been responsible for the suspension of voting, the suspension of the Constitution. I mean, we don't know where this is going to go, but look, if Trump gets control of the Supreme Court, like you said, he largely has already, and if he gets control of the military through what the actions that they're doing, and getting control, or at least banning the press corps, I mean, history has many examples of this. I mean, it's almost like people's eyes are closed. I mean, and then people are like, "Oh no, there's no way at the end of Trump's term he's going to be able to be like, I'm going to run again, or I'm going to." Are you kidding me? Of course you can.
People are swimming in their hate and their ideologies. They're too drunk off of that to just pay attention to the world.
Well, you got one side hating on him, and then you got the other side going, I don't think that's going to happen because that's not realistic. He's not trying to be the dictator. Oh, come on. Both sides are wrong.
That's why when I said a few right-leaning things and people attack me with the idea that he may do this and do that, and I'm like, I think he'll do all that if he can. But
Yep.
I think if the liberal gets in, he'll do the same thing. Because when he was in, the liberal was attempting to strip me of my rights. I felt like more rights were taken from me in the last previous 8 years than has happened in less than a year.
Phil, I mean, they put out look, the Project 2025 playbook was out. They're basically following that. Almost everything in that has actually occurred or underway. So this isn't been secretive. So, I mean, and that's what I argued before, I think on the last podcast, the Republicans or the conservatives or the Trumpers or whatever you want to call them have a playbook and they have a plan. That is the very definition of the problem that the left and the liberals and the Democrats don't have, is they don't have a playbook. So, unfortunately, I mean, he's taking advantage of a vacuum here, and he's getting the job done. And it's a scary thing, I think, at the end of the day for all of us. I just every day I see something, crazier than the last, and yet we all go, oh yeah, oh yeah, and then the haters just go, God, there's another thing Trump did I hate, and the people on the other side are like, oh yeah, good, yeah, you go, rah, we did it. And then we move to the next thing, and before you know it,
I've held my tongue on this. I can't hold it no more.
Okay.
I mean, not just held it during this podcast. I mean, since we've been talking about politics, I've labeled it 80-20, and we've danced around. This is something that a person in politics in my family said a long time ago that really hit home to me. If you can claim the moral high ground, you can claim everything.
Yep.
And that's what's actually happening with everything that we discuss with the left and the right. The right is able to get things that are deplorable through. They've been successful with a lot of things because they started first with the moral high ground.
Yep.
So people are willing to accept some of these negative things.
Yep.
People are willing to accept people getting beat up in the streets and different other things that are going on because they feel like they have the moral high ground.
Yep.
And go ahead.
No, I mean, and it's even deeper than that. When it's just like a snowball effect. So because they have that, and they have, in the case of the right wing, has the conservative Christian coalition behind them, which, by the way, is a growing force for right, wrong, or indifferent. That's just a fact. It's turned into a snowball. If you look at the news right now, I'm looking at I get the news. I always do this podcast with the news page in front of me, and I just saw Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, who obviously took Trump to court, was just indicted by the Justice Department today. So this is another one. We got Comey. He is going after every single political enemy that he had, right? And if he's got the courts on his favor, guess what? He's going to win those. And this is not good, but meanwhile, okay, let me scan down a couple more articles. I got this Katie Porter, who I don't know if you've heard, anybody out there listen. She's running, or she's going to be running, I guess, for governor of California. Here's an example of the Democrats once again picking a fucking idiot, an absolute. I mean,
I wish I could play the interview.
Oh my God, me too. I mean, I don't know how to paint this. I wish we had more liberal Democrats listen to our podcast right now, because I'm talking to you guys again. I'm always talking to you guys, but you guys pick the absolute worst fucking candidates that you can find, whether it's for president, governor, the school board. I don't care who the hell it is. I don't know how the Democrats pick candidates. It's like they look around and they go, "Who's the worst person we could pick?" And then they go, "I don't understand how come we keep losing." Oh God!
So,
but
Mike,
Katie Porter is a moron.
Yes. And like I said, I watched the whole thing where they interviewed all of the other people because I thought I was going to catch the reporter in a lie. She kept saying, "I'm only asking the same." And I was like, that's bullshit. And she was.
And she was. I go, oh my God, this person can't. I mean, Californians cannot be that fucking stupid, are they? Listening, calling all Californians out there right now. If you're listening to the podcast, you can't be that stupid. You really can't be that stupid.
I'm not going to call them stupid, but they did vote in Gavin Newsom.
Yeah,
they did vote in the current mayor that they have.
But what? Oh God, let's not go down that road. But I mean, in fairness to Gavin Newsom, at least he can speak. This Porter, she can't speak.
Wow, it wasn't even like she was a politician.
No,
I was shocked to find out that she had the credentials that she did have. It was like they just picked a mom out the audience and put her up there.
Phil, she had that face. I'm going to call it the Democrat face of entitled. I can't believe you're asking me this question, and like you just smacked me in the face with a rubber snake. You know what I mean? Like she had that look on her face the whole time.
Anytime they have to give a reasonable answer to a reasonable question, it seems like that's the one that really stomps them. If you give them some intricate question, they'll knock that out the park. But if you just so what's a boy and a girl?
And they won't answer the question. That's the other thing. They won't. They simply won't. Phil, they won't answer that question
and be pissed at you.
Which, by the way, that's what I like to call your 80-20 rules. That's picking the 20% of the argument that's going to lose every single time. Every single time.
So, Mike, let's talk about this. Letitia James was once lauded for holding Donald Trump accountable in civil court, yet today she stands indicted by the Justice Department on allegations of mortgage fraud. This is a dramatic turn in a case that touches on law, politics, and power. Mike, how do you see these things unfolding?
Well, I mean, very similarly, and
I don't think she's going to jail.
Everybody's going to hate me for saying this, but like most of the charges that they brought against Trump were bullshit charges. And I hate to say it, but most of the charges that he's bringing against these people are also bullshit charges. It's just bullshit on both sides. It's political bullshit on both sides. But, I mean, I guess I can understand, like, hey, let's bring Comey and James in here and give them a bunch of charges because that's what they did to me.
So what do you believe are the possible motivations behind prosecuting Letitia James now?
Well, I think it's once again, I think it goes towards his desire to control the entire court system up and down, right? So, if you start attacking all your foes, you're going to, and you've seen him doing this, by the way, he's been appointing his own people in most of these positions. This is the way you take over the justice system.
Especially during the shutdown, he's been putting all his appointees in.
All of them.
So this thing is really backfiring on them.
Well, and that's what I said. This is it's the Democrats' fault for shutting the government down, and to be honest, it's going to hurt them more than anybody. So I don't get it. So,
Mike, conversely, what if she's exonerated? What does that signal? Let's say within a 6-month period from now, they go through the whole rigmarole, legal process and everything, and she's exonerated.
See, the problem is that we have an attention span of a TikTok reel. So, I think by that time that happens, Trump is a master at controlling the news and the media and the storylines. So by the time that she gets off, we're on to something else. See, so the damage is occurring now, I think, is that, it's like, here, told you, she's crooked. And then that's it. It's almost irrelevant whether or not she gets off or not, because by then they're on to some other news cycle that people are interested in now. I mean, look, we got all these things floating out, right? We got Epstein. The Epstein thing is floating around in the background here. I mean, that could be floating around for 5 more years. Who knows? Like, no, I don't even think, when it comes down to it, I think I said this before. I'm like, I'm not even sure why anybody gives a shit. But I don't know.
So, Mike, a high-stakes courtroom battle in Washington could determine whether President Trump's use of the National Guard in D.C. was lawful or a dangerous overreach. 23 Republican-led states are backing Trump, while 22 Democrat-led states side with D.C.'s Attorney General, calling the deployment unconstitutional. With oral arguments set for October 24th, the ruling could reshape how presidents use the guards in cities across America. So, Mike, do you see this as necessary protection or as a chilling precedent?
Well, I mean, this goes both ways. I can argue both sides on this. I mean, he sent him into Washington, D.C. It succeeded. I mean, by and large, it helped. I think everybody could probably look at it and say, whether or not it was constitutional. So here's the question, and Trump has been good at this. If they decide that sending in, quote, the National Guard isn't legal, what's to stop Trump from starting a new organization that is legal? I mean, like, he's been known to, he invented the Space Force as an example. And maybe he just invents some new federal thing that circumvents the law. I don't know where Mike, this is going to go.
It seemed like when we talk about stuff the next week, that's what's happening. So you just fucked up and put it out in the air.
Yes, exactly. So it won't be called the National Guard anymore. It'll be called the Federal Assistance Management Program for States Guard.
Okay, I'm going to have to mark this because I want to see how accurate the title that they choose, because that sounds like a reasonable name. That sounds like a Trump name for an organization.
Yeah, because they like those things, and you got to put letters in it, like Doge or something. You got, start with all the letters, and that's that'll. I mean,
and
here's
then
my problem.
Have a meme campaign to go with it.
Yep. my problem is the states or the places that he wants to send the National Guard to have legitimate issues that are not being addressed by the local authorities. Now, that's irrelevant to whether or not it's legal or not to send in the federal troops. I understand that. But, the problem is that it's political behind the scenes, because he probably wouldn't necessarily need to send in the troops to certain locations if they actually cooperated, but they're not. So, that's a deeper issue. And there's a hatred of, I would say, if you're on the left, you hate ICE, which, if you analyze that, doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, here's a institution that is in place to protect all citizens of the United States.
Well, they also hate police too. This fits right in with their line of thinking.
Yep. And what you're seeing is, once again, is that was largely the Biden administration catered to that, and the pendulum has swung the other direction now. And history's going to show. And I don't think this is a political statement. I think history's going to show that Biden was a terrible president, right? And those 4 years.
It's already done that.
Yeah. I mean, look, even today, Obama came out and basically congratulated Donald Trump on, securing a peace deal in the Middle East, which, by the way, we're going to talk about in a second, but that has so many implications. That's something that Biden had not one iota of success, zero. And that's just one thing. I also saw an interesting interview on MSNBC the other day where they sent a reporter down to the border in Texas with the Mexican border, and the same reporter had gone down there 2 years ago under the Biden administration, and I think at that point there was like 2,000 people crossing a day. She spent 3 days down there, and there wasn't even 20 people that they nabbed. Like, to say that Biden was ineffective on the border is like saying water is necessary to life.
Mike, President Trump says Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson should be jailed for trying to block his National Guard deployment. While they stall in court, Texas troops are already staged outside the city. Chicago has become a national symbol of crime, chaos, and failed leadership. And Trump argues it's time Washington steps in. Mike, is this exactly the kind of tough response Chicago needs, or is it an overstep?
I think it's going to depend on what the Supreme Court says. Let's put it this way: if the Supreme Court says it's constitutional, it's to protect the United States, and it is within the rights of the president to do, then, I mean, Chicago is probably a top choice to do it in. Because, as you just said, it's a crime hotbed. It has been for a long time. Been mismanaged by multiple governors, multiple mayors. It's been crooked as shit for years. I don't know. I mean, by the way, Pritzker, billionaire Pritzker. Let's just call him for what he is.
So, Mike, no bias, just your true deep down opinion. Are Pritzker and Johnson, are they sincerely attempting to protect their citizens, or are they protecting their failed policies, or
they're not
Democrats?
protecting? Come on, they're not protecting their citizens. I think that's a load of shit. I think that's a total load of shit. I think that they are.
So look, it's not a misled person. Like,
nobody wants your big boss to come in and take over. And that's what it is. So they don't want that. It makes them look bad. But they're also not doing anything to solve their own problem.
I was taught, if my boss has to lift a finger, what am I there for?
Right. That's a good point. And I think the mayor of Washington, D.C., as a contrast, was not a big fan of Trump doing it, but she was able to tread the line. And remember, Washington is obviously a very liberal city, and she was still more liberal than Chicago. She was able to tread the line with her own constituents and be able to work with Trump, and you saw success out of that. So, and that's not saying that it was legal or not. That's not a judgment on my part whether it was legal or not, but there was results that were positive. So why wouldn't Pritzker and the mayor of Chicago go, okay, look, we don't want him sending it here. We believe it's unconstitutional. However, it's the federal government. We're going to cooperate. We're going to help out until the court says, no, this can't happen. But that's not what they're doing. These politicians have essentially become like second-rate protesters.
So, Mike, let's move on to the latest, greatest news right now.
Oh, boy.
There's big news out of Washington. Representative Buddy Carter says he's nominating President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize after Trump announced a landmark deal to end the Israel-Hamas war. Trump's claiming the first phase will see all hostages released and Israeli troops pulled back to an agreed line. That's no small development, Mike. So, but the question is, should this agreement and Trump's role in it be considered Nobel Peace Prize worthy?
I want one of our listeners out there that's on the left to write in and say that they think that he should be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, because I'm going to eat my dirty underwear at some point here, because I have a feeling that one of my most hated politicians in Hillary Clinton, I have a feeling she's going to come through and nominate him. Yeah, because I hate
Wait
to
a minute,
say
say
this.
that again.
I think Hillary Clinton's going to nominate him for. She said that. Remember, she was in an interview that said if he can bring a peace accord with Gaza and Israel and Ukraine, and she's going to nominate Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. I fucking think she's gonna.
Wow.
And I think she's gonna.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, if Hillary Clinton does that, then I think there's a lot of general public left-wing people out there that are going to be on the wrong side of history, because I think that, as much as you hate him, as much as he's a narcissist, as much as he probably does a lot of things that are not peace-worthy, I think in this case, I think he was the guy instrumental for pulling them together. Yeah, I do.
Well, if that happens, you need to go buy a bunch of wood and a good coat, because hell is about to freeze over.
That's right.
I cannot see that, bro. I can't see that at all.
Well,
No, she is as liberal as they get. That
I get it.
she.
You know
ain't
what? You know
gonna-
who else I used to. Who else I couldn't stand, and I never understood how they elected him, and who's turned out to be somewhat normal. Was Fetterman in Pennsylvania? Like, I couldn't believe they elected this guy. He could barely even speak, and he was like crazy. Had some crazy left wing ideas, and yet he's the only guy this week that voted to pass the freaking budget and not close the government. He, like, all of a sudden he's like somewhere in the. He actually said today that he thinks Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize.
So, Mike, but you kind of scooted around. I'm asking you, should he be considered for the Nobel
Yes.
Peace Prize?
For that, yes.
I'm going to take it a step further. If this goes into fruition, he should be like what do they call it in the Heisman when everybody votes for you? Whatever ballot it should be. He should get 100. He should get 100% of the vote. This should be a slam dunk automatic. That you brought peace to something that's been going on for thousands of years. Some people say hundreds. You pick whichever one. That's still amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it should just be automatic. And here's the contrast to that. Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize during the same exact time he was getting ready for war.
Yep.
And he became known for how many people he used drones on. He was called the drone president. He was the one who, in the whole world, was the first leader in the whole world to take drones and just go around killing people. He killed his own people. He killed an actual U.S. citizen with a drone. Mm-hmm. So if he got it, he should be a shoo-in.
Yep. I think based on what I'm seeing from the people that are intelligent and, like we said earlier, world traveled like Obama, I think that they are going to support it. I think that who the people are not going to support it are the people that are responsible for Trump being in power, and that would be the average liberal American. They're not going to support that. But they're the reason that Trump's where he is, because I firmly believe that Trump wouldn't be the president right now if it wasn't for the liberals.
Now, there's another option out there that I'm not hearing anybody talk about, Mike. What if they get all of the hostages back and then just blow them up? I think the only reason why they've survived this long is because they still had the hostages. Once they give them hostages up, it's over.
Well, let's Yeah, let's be honest with this. So this is going to be interesting. This peace accord is going to be challenging because I don't think anybody can be trusted on either side.
Hmm.
The only thing that's going for it is that you've got the entire world looking on and to some extent now involved because I think virtually everybody that's anybody of importance flew into Egypt at this point and got involved in this negotiation thing. But Trump is now claiming that the hostages are going to be released on Monday or Tuesday. He actually just announced that he's planning on traveling to the Middle East, I think, to be a part of the signing. So that this is, I don't. This is going to be underplayed news, and the reason it's going to be underplayed news is because the media is still largely controlled by the left. The left. I saw some memes this morning on TikTok already where they were like, people have been fighting against the war and everything, and now they're saying that Trump got it done, and they're like, please fail, please fail, please fail.
So could this actually change Trump's image on the world stage?
I think it changes it on the world stage. I don't think it changes it on the home stage.
I understand. So, Mike, you were mentioning how I forgot what you said. You were saying something about different places. Oh, about the world leaders, flying back and forth. This is an observation that I have no stats or facts to back up. So tell me, are you seeing the same thing? I can't recall a time in world history ever where in a 6-month period, there were so many world leaders traveling back and forth. It's
No.
unusual for them to get on a plane and cross borders.
And most of it's because of Trump.
I mean, there's been a lot of big meetings, a lot of big leaders and tyrants and dictators and kings and queens, and they've been flying around like I've never, or maybe they just don't report it. I've never heard of these many meetings and flying around.
I think it's not an illusion. I think it actually is happening. And I think it's largely because the world has, I mean, I'm going to go on record here and say that I know we've argued about this on the podcast before, but I think that Trump is on the world stage has become even more powerful than he was before. And I think he's largely moving them around like chess pieces to some extent.
I agree with that, but I also think I definitely agree with everything you said. But on the flip side, too, I think some of this is these countries are seeing a potential power shift, and they're going back and forth figuring out, okay, should I stick with my allies? Should I go with this new surge toward China and India? Should I stay neutral? These smaller leaders are trying to figure out where they stand in all of this.
Well, and this particularly thing with Gaza and Israel is way greater than that, because you got to remember a lot of the world just is voted to recognize a Palestinian state, which we know is not going to be Hamas, and we know it's unlikely to be Gaza. Where it is, God knows, because even basically the Arab states don't agree with it. But they're all looking
they
on.
walked out on Netanyahu when he was talking at the UN.
Right.
Everybody walked out.
Yep.
Nobody's rolling with Israel like that no more.
That's right. However, because Trump got him to the table and got him to sign this peace deal, they might be able to make their way back slowly.
And I'm going to have to do a little research and thinking about it. But for a victory, there's always a loser. So there's somebody, there's some entity, there's some region, there's some leader who totally don't want this war to end. They don't want a ceasefire. They don't want peace. So I could potentially, if you ask me,
that would be Israel.
Well, I mean beyond the actual players.
Okay.
And I could literally see some form of psyops coming in the next 6 months. I hope I'm wrong on this prediction, but I could see some kind of terrorist event and we can't figure out who it is, or conveniently all the evidence points toward someone. Everybody's not for this, and
No, for sure.
they have the resources to cause an issue.
I'm not sure that most of the Arab world is in favor of this, to be honest with you, because although they don't like Israel, but they also are not big fans of Hamas or the Palestinians. So, Israel was doing a job for them, meaning getting rid of the Palestinians. And although they're not buddies with Israel, they were kind of turning a blind eye to it.
So this is what I've been hearing from Arab people, Mike. And that's a very, 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 very small portion of people. 3.
Yep.
They've been saying almost identical to what you said, but what they've also been saying is we could exterminate Hamas. We can't fight with Israel, partly because of nuclear and their military, right, but also because of their alliance to America. So if we can extinguish Israel, we'd rather do that and then worry about the Palestinians later.
Yep, it's true. Yeah, but that
makes
another
sense
reason
to me too.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it's also another reason why they wouldn't want this to end, because the longer it goes on, Israel becomes more and more unpopular. So they're losing world support. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, Mike, have we missed anything?
Oh, we always miss something, but we covered the 2 major topics, which was Hamas and Taylor Swift.
Absolutely. All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Tread lightly, stay safe.
And we'll see you here at some point next week.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.